Calling to order the regular Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Wheeling for Wednesday, March 11, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. Well, first order of business is we need someone to fill in as secretary for this evening. Do we have any volunteers first?
I'll do it.
All right. Commissioner Creech.
Want me to move down there?
Sure. It'd be easier.
My hand moving something?
I'll be anonymous.
All right, so just need you to do the roll call first.
Commissioner Sprague?
Here.
Mr. Kalis is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Belanova is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Yednick?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
I'm here. Commissioner Creech, President Johnson.
Here. Mr. Robles, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
All right. We had no one sign up for citizens' concerns and comments. So we'll move on to consent items. Docket number SCBA 20-8, XO Restaurant, 1057 West Lake Cook Road, for the installation of a modified wall sign. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Oh, second.
Yet an action.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Mr. Yednick?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Creech says yes. President Johnson?
Yes, thanks for the promotion, but it's just chairman.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
Item to review, docket number PC 20-5, BBKUP, minor site plan approval at 1960 South Wolf Road.
I have another.
Sorry, what?
Two consent items.
You're looking at an old one. That's the minutes from last time.
Okay.
Mr. Robles, anything on this?
Just a real quick overview. The petitioner is a new tenant of the existing shopping center and is seeking to open up a new restaurant within a previously occupied restaurant space. The prior restaurant operator had been there for quite some time and had a trash container, but was not in an enclosure. There are some older properties within the village that were constructed prior to the current code requirements where trash containers had to be within an enclosure. This is one of them. Since this is a new incoming restaurant, not only the zoning code, but the health division requirement requires that the new trash container be within an enclosure, which results in the petitioner being in front of the Plan Commission tonight for review of the site plan and appearance of the trash enclosure that's being proposed at the rear of the building. The staff has worked with the petitioner in a location. Initially, staff had looked to move it away from the building. However, that conflicted with fire emergency access along the rear here. So the enclosure had to be moved back towards the building. In this case, there's quite a number of utilities and other elements back there, so there's a small area in which the enclosure can be located, which is indicated here. The staff is recommending approval of the request.
All right, thank you. Is the petitioner here? Step up. State your name and business address for the
My
record.
name is Dennis Che. The business address will be 1960 South Wolf Road.
Can you speak up or closer to the mic
yeah,
or something?
of course. Sorry about that. My
So
name
the
is-
audience at home can hear you.
My name is Dennis Che. I'm representing Mr. Jay Lee tonight. The business address is 1960 South Wolf Road.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what you are asking for?
So we are asking for building a trash enclosure. Previous occupants don't have enclosure because previous regulation doesn't require it. I have talked with city health inspector, and she was requesting us to build this trash enclosure. And as my knowledge is we are following the health code to design this enclosure, and it's pretty simple, just like that.
All right. Anything else, Steve, on your end?
No.
All right, then we'll go to the commission, and we'll start with Commissioner Creech.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to come back to you?
Yeah, please come back.
Okay. Commissioner Sprague.
Good evening. I just have one thought or suggestion for you. You're going to make this out of wood?
Oh, yes, it will be treated white pine.
Okay. Did you consider composite material at all?
Can you rephrase that question again?
It's recycled fence material.
I mean, it's related to health code. Normally, as a personal preference, I don't like recycled material. Also,
The only reason I'm suggesting it is, even though it's a little more expensive at the beginning, there's a lot less maintenance involved with that, and it's just there's nothing wrong with the wood, but the composite material would be last longer and less maintenance.
okay.
Just a suggestion.
We have about a $3,000 budget at this moment for this trash enclosure. And I have a quote from contractor. At this moment, it will be $3,400-ish. So as our budget allow us to do, this might be the best option I can have at this
I
moment.
understand. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Thompson.
No questions.
Commissioner Yednek.
Yeah, could, Mr. Robles, can you go back to the layout? Yeah, actually, yeah, that one. So I'm curious, the arrows are showing, okay, that's the length, okay, so it's going to be approximately in the middle of the building. Are those angled spots, would it be just north of the enclosure or east of the enclosure? Are those parking spots?
Those were land-banked parking areas this is from the original site plan approval. So those were land-banked parking spots that in the future, if additional parking needed to be provided, it would be done so in that area. There is not parking within that rear area at the moment.
Okay, so we're not impacting
Correct.
existing parking? or
Correct.
cutting on the
It's
number?
just a service lane currently.
Okay, all right, that's all the questions I had, thanks.
All right. Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too had the same question as far as the location of the trash container. I was wondering why it couldn't be put all the way on that west property line, considering that the trash enclosures that were on the north end of this project was all the way in the back on that property line. I was wondering why that wasn't possible.
The trash enclosures at the north end do not interfere. As you can see at the north end, it widens up due to the triangular shape. So with the enclosures being up at the north west corner of the property, it does not interfere with maneuvering in that area. So it's allowed to be nestled in this area without interfering with the through lane for deliveries as well as for fire emergency vehicles. However, back here, this area is pretty tight, and again, because of those reasons, would not allow it to be placed out in this area because this would be in directly in the lane of the service lane for deliveries as well as for fire emergency vehicles.
Thank you. My other complaint is that this particular trash enclosure doesn't even come close to anything that, we have discussed going forward in our particular designs as far as the materials being used and the construction of the particular trash enclosure. So have you talked to our staff as far as the design for this particular trash enclosure?
Yes, I believe I have, and for me, my impressions, they are fine with this design so far. I have called and emailed with city health inspector, and I think she was fine with this design.
I'm sorry, who did you speak with?
Health.
Health inspector.
The health inspector for us? And the health inspector was okay with that particular design?
She never claimed she was against the design, so.
Have you talked to our staff, to like Marcy or to
Yes, I have talked
Steve?
with Marcy along the way, and she was, she haven't against the design yet.
Well, I think that this particular design is completely inadequate for, what you're going to be doing here. I don't see this thing holding up for more than a couple of years, to tell you the truth.
The structure is reinforced by 4 stainless steel posts on each corner, and as...
I can't tell that by what you have here. All you have is a picture of slats and 4 corners.
That drawing does show,
Well,
it shows posts going down.
Well, yeah, there's more information there, but, well, I don't feel that this particular design is adequate for a trash container, and I'm totally against this design, so my vote would be no. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Now, you've determined that this size, was it 6 by,
the height will be 6, and
6 by 9.
Yeah,
6 by 9 or 8 by 9?
it will be 8 by 9.
Sorry, 8
8
by
by
9.
9.
8 by 9.
And that's big enough for the trash container and the grease container?
Oh, yes, we have measured that.
Okay. I'm a little confused on the dimensions on the drawing because the way I read it, it's only 6 inches high. And the posts are 42 feet deep.
Yeah.
6 feet of gravel.
That's 8 inch by 9 inch and 6 feet of gravel, or 4 feet of gravel and 6 feet of concrete. So wrong symbols were used. And there's also no details on the gate itself. Another issue I noticed was on the isometric drawing, you've got 2 horizontal bands.
On the outside.
Well, it's on the outside and on the inside. So I'm not sure just how that's put together. And then on the elevation view, there's 3 horizontal rails that appear to be on the outside. I don't know if this is something that has to be redone before they can get permits. The other issue, and maybe this would have a bearing on using composite instead, if you can this is going to be up against the building, right, Ron? So it could be three-sided. So you could actually attach it to the building?
I thought the paperwork in the file said it was something that was read.
The drawing's showing four-sided.
Correct. Maybe it just referred that it was up against the building.
Yeah. So if you eliminate the cost of one side and put it up against the building, maybe you can use better material. But either way, I think we need a little more detail on the gate.
Gate, hardware.
Yeah, the hardware being used, are the cross rails on the inside or the outside? I just can't tell much from these drawings. They kind of contradict each other. So I would like to see this come back and with better details. And look at, if it's going to be three-sided, can you use the composite material? It's the recycled plastic, and it just holds up much better. You don't have to worry about staining or painting or having it rotting from the snow. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that's it. So my recommendation, and I'm only one, is to come back with a fresh drawing that details that a little bit better for us so we can pass it along.
Okay, that's okay. This drawing was provided by our contractor as it was their standard design for such structure. But if the board want more detail, I can certainly provide that.
Well, again, if I were to hand this to somebody to build, you may only have a 6-inch high trash enclosure. I think your contractor needs to redo those dimensions and get them right. So do we just continue this?
Have a motion to continue
Mr.
it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would also like to see the gates on separate posts rather than posts that are holding up the fence, which should be larger than the, I don't know if they even give us a dimension on these posts that they're going to use, but that's all.
So what do we need to do?
I seek a motion for a continuation with
All
a
right.
second and then a vote for a continuation.
So, would someone like to make a motion to continue this?
So moved.
Second.
And do we need a date certain?
No, it's not a public hearing.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Yednick,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Ms. Bonova is absent, with Ms. Kalitz absent. Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech votes yes. Chairman Johnson?
Yes. So, will you contact them, or?
Yeah, well, Marcy will follow up with you and let you know the details that we need for the next meeting. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you. They don't need it.
Thank you. You could feel free to leave for the night. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, there's nothing this night.
All right, moving on. Docket number PC 20-1, Builders Asphalt, major site plan approval at 435 and 571 South Wheeling Road. Mr. Robles.
Yes, the petitioner Builders Asphalt is requesting a major site plan approval to expand their facilities to the north and occupy the property currently occupied by Pete's Perfection, 435 South Wheeling Road. What would be expanded is additional access to the operation, as well as stormwater detention, which would create some more room on the existing asphalt plant property. None of the actual asphalt plant operation would be expanded beyond its current envelope right now. This is merely stormwater and access. This is major site plan review, so it does require recommendation from the Plan Commission and then proceed to the Village Board for a final decision. And there are 2 items of consideration that the staff has identified for the Plan Commission. The first one is that the proposal includes paving of this southeast corner here, which is their current detention. The proposal has a note stating that the pile will keep to a maximum of 20 feet high, as well as a setback of 20 feet from the property lines. However, the asphalt pavement does extend all the way to the property line, and staff is concerned that that would allow for encroachment beyond that 20-foot, since there isn't an actual barrier. So staff is suggest that the Plan Commission consider how to reinforce that 20-foot setback. And then additional details staff is seeking regarding this is the current driveway to access the plant for trucks. There's a notation on the plan that indicates that it will be closed off but remain access for fire emergency. So staff just would like some additional clarification on, will that be gated? Will it, what will that be closed off and how?
Very good. Is the petitioner here?
Good evening.
Give us your name and business address.
Tim Winter with Pell Group, Inc., 321 Center Street, Hillside, Illinois.
All right. What's your presentation?
Yeah, did a good job. Really, all it is we've always been in communications with the owner of Pete's Perfection about possibly going there. We couldn't do anything when we came through 4 years ago, but we had an open conversation. He says, why don't you see if you get your permits and go through, and then we'll be able to make a deal. We're like, fine. So we want to come through. We like doing this because it pushes our driveway farther north, which gives us more stacking for the trucks coming for the operation on our property, not wheeling there. Unfortunately, there are occasions here or there that we have trucks sitting waiting to get into our yard. So this will allow another 15, if we really squeeze 20 trucks stacking on our property, which at any given moment is probably the biggest, most congested we'll ever get. So it gets our trucks off Wheeling Road quicker. We didn't know what to do with the remaining of the property because we did want the driveway. Having extra yard space over on his property did not suit us because there was that little skinny pond detention basin along our north property line, so it kind of was divided. We're like, well, why don't we bring that over? Talking with our engineers, we said, well, we could probably fill in the other detention, everything over there, then we just have yard space all next to what we have now. And so we're not looking to change anything except for having the drivers have more storage on site as our biggest. The frontage along Wheeling Road is going to be consistent with what we have with the wood fence and the landscaping. The backside will still be the chain link fence that we have, where we don't have the concrete blocks for aggregate storage. In regards to the existing driveway of how we're going to gate that off, we have a sliding gate there now, and that will just remain closed unless needed open for a fire emergency, and I believe the fire department does have a key to get in there.
Yeah, that current gate is a powered gate, and we have a Knox keyway that opens the gate up, so that would remain the same.
And then the other driveway by Pete's Perfection is going to be completely
Yes, yeah. Yep.
re-landscaped and everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, anything else?
No, there's really not
Okay.
much. I don't get to talk as much this time.
We'll start asking you then. Commissioner Sprague.
Good evening, Tim. Let's start out with the other concern that staff had with the keeping 20 foot away from their property line with the materials that you plan on storing.
I don't like it, but we'll agree to it. How's that for an answer?
But what's going to keep the material from encroaching into those areas? I mean, if you're just going to have a big pile there,
We're just, the way we do it is the yard personnel will know that it's 20 feet, and they will make sure it's vehicular access can get around there at all times. So whoever's in charge of the yard will always make sure daily trips driving around to see where we're at with all the aggregate piles. And he'll just make sure that's there, and if not, he'll get the loader to move it around.
No chance of some kind of barrier so that you wouldn't have to worry about it?
We could do that. The problem is it kind of limits our loading area, because that's where our recycling location is. So where we have the conveyors, after it's been recycled, it goes down. And so the loader would rather be on the back side to pick it up and not on the same side as the conveyor. So it just limits our operations a little bit more.
So the loader needs room back there to get
Loader
around?
needs room too.
Okay. The only other question I had is the new basin that is going to be developed. Is that going to be adequate to replace not only the two basins that you're going to fill, but the new property? Is that large enough? Do we know?
Yeah, I got my engineer here who could answer that for sure, but we're almost got our MWD permit, which governs stormwater, and that's not the issue, is the size of the basin. And I know Kyle's reviewed it. I believe he's comfortable with the size too. I haven't reviewed all his.
Yeah, it's pretty much all the way through MWD permitting. With the removal of the existing basin and the upsizing of this area over here, there should be no detention concerns.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Thompson?
Yeah, my only question was about the barrier, so no questions.
Commissioner Yednak?
Yeah, this one I think is about the stormwater also. And this is an engineering question. I'm a neophyte. I have no idea how this works, but I'm assuming that the original stormwater basin, everything, the whole site was landscaped or leveled or whatever to direct the water to the existing stormwater basin. So how are you just moving the stormwater basin all the way on the other side of the property and have the water go where you want it to go instead of going where it was originally designed to go?
The quick answer is pipes.
Total neophyte on this. I have no idea, but that was the first thing I thought of when I was looking at this, is how do you make the water go different direction?
Yeah, the quick answer is pipes, but I have Kevin Trey from Mackey who could probably answer it much better than I can. He designed the system.
Well, isn't part of it though, is that if you're talking about like is your site concrete now, or is it just?
Asphalt.
So I mean, the pipes aren't going to direct the asphalt.
Well, what you're not seeing in these pictures is that a component of the stormwater detention facility is underground detention pipes. So currently, there's pipes along the east property line that are buried there that are also filling up with stormwater under a rain event that was connecting the south basin with the north basin. So as we replace the north basin with the larger basin, the connection still remains. It all hydraulically fills and drains together. So there is still a connectivity there.
So it was originally coming up here and emptying in here, so we're now replacing this storm sewer coming down here along the east property line and connecting to the underground.
You may want to go up there and show everybody then, yeah, so.
Okay, it's small, I'll try and. Yeah. Kevin, you go ahead, do it.
So what you're seeing here is the south portion of the site, the existing asphalt plant. Here's where the existing detention basin was that they're filling in. All these lines here are oversized storm sewer pipes that also fill up with water in a rain event. And between these pipes and the existing basin up here at this end, it's all hydraulically connected. When we fill in this one and excavate the new larger basin, the connection remains between those pipes and here. So water that was being collected in an inlet on this end, it all drops into the same system. As it fills up, both the basin and the pipes will fill up together, and then as it's slowly released, it'll drain down together.
Yeah, I'm not a hydrologist, so I have no idea how that works, but it makes sense to me. I know water wants to go where it wants to go, and I thought if it was always going in one place, it didn't want to change its mind. Other question is, I think for staff and legal, I mean, this whole area is part of the station area plan. And this does not really conform with the long-range plans for this property? Are we doing a disservice by approving more development in this area that is counter to what we want to have happen in the long term?
It's a very good question. With the existing property and its use, the one that will be expanded into the salvage and tow, that does not conform with the intended change of the stationary plan.
Which doesn't conform?
The
Builder's
Pete's Perfection property. So,
No, but I thought part of the stationary plan was somehow try to relocate Builder's Asphalt. So if they're going to be sinking money into more development.
Not this one. There's the former asphalt plant that was relocated from the north to here. The asphalt operation here was not part of a relocation plan. There's the concrete plant, the current concrete plant, and then there is the former asphalt plant that are all identified in the stationary plan as redevelopment or relocation.
But did I look at the boundaries wrong? I thought that this property was also part of the stationary plan.
It is part of the stationary plan. However, the stationary plan does recognize that there are existing uses that are in place. And when the time comes for redevelopment at that point, then the plan has suggestions for that. But the plan doesn't say that this doesn't focus in on this particular property and say it needs to be addressed in the current or near future. But going back to the original where this will expand green space further north, and so it's not really taking away any developable area. The likelihood of the property to the north being redeveloped for something is minimal, just given its size. So this will, in essence, actually take an industrial use away and provide, an open green area that could benefit the long term because it is reducing the industrial, the previous industrial nature.
I can see that point, but I still thought that the 571 south, that's the further south part? Where Builder's Asphalt is currently located, I thought the long-term plan for that was still going to be like housing, recreation, parkland, whatever. So if they're putting more money into expanding that property, does that put a burden on the village then if we wanted to relocate them in the future that we'd have to buy out more? They have more investment. I don't want to keep them from doing business, but I thought long-term, this was going to be part of the stationary. I guess I'm not understanding if this is part of the stationary or not. If I misread the boundaries, then
No,
I misread the drawing.
it is. It's just not. It's not a focused area of the stationary plan to focus immediate effort on changing land uses or seeking a difference in what's currently there now. We have other areas of the plan that have a focused area, critical areas that need to be addressed.
I understand that. I see. There's priorities, but this is long-term. This is part of the stationary plan. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess,
and long-term, it could be 20 years, it could be 40 years. So for the current moment.
I'll be dead, I won't see it then, okay.
Right, for the current moment, it's not really expanding the asphalt operation itself. What it is it's centralizing stormwater detention and increasing green space that was otherwise not.
But the business is going to put an investment into it.
Absolutely,
It's gonna-
absolutely. And
that they would want to be able to recoup. They don't want to come put this big investment and then 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road.
Yeah,
Within some small period of time, we start trying to put pressure on them to say, well, we want to take over this property, we want to relocate you someplace else.
This isn't the
No.
one that we are looking to relocate. They just relocated
Right.
there.
Yeah, I noticed that it was fair,
Because that was kind of the whole goal, is the old one was much closer to the critical area of the stationary plan that we wanted redeveloped.
Okay, I mean, right now, it's
Further away.
fairly industrial. I don't think you're going to change the neighborhood like Steve was saying. It's going to add more green space, but I thought long-term, it was confusing to me. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Creech?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have a mouse that It's connected. Go through the flow of traffic through the site.
Okay, majority of our all of our traffic is gonna come in this entrance right here. That's just where it's gonna go, come in, and it's gonna come down this driveway. A majority of the trucks that come in here are gonna go straight to other silos to get loaded up, with asphalt, and then sorry, I'm having trouble with the mouth. And then they'll come out this driveway, exit back out, whether they go north or south in Wheeling, depending where the project is. I would say that's a great majority of them. Some will come back around behind the building, and this is where our aggregate bins are that we use to make our asphalt. They'll make the deliveries of the aggregates. They normally stop right in front of the office really quick to get a ticket or deliver their tickets, and then they come back out this exit. There are some that will bypass this entirely and come over here where our broken road materials are, whether it's asphalt or concrete, and they will unload that here. And at that time, they might come back through the yard to load up, fill their truck up with asphalt, or sometimes they purchase the recycled concrete or asphalt. But everybody's gonna come back out this exit. So it's one entrance only here, exit only here.
Okay, I was looking at the original plans for this relocation,
It
and
got
it was
flipped at
completely
one point.
opposite.
We were working with staff, and we just liked this better. At one point, like, yeah, they liked that idea too, and it helps. It's smart that we did that, especially if we move forward with this property. We got more stacking internally.
And Steve, the overall green space actually increases with this?
Correct.
Do you have a percentage or
I
guess?
don't know off the top, no.
Do you know Brad? Brad's our landscape architect.
Yeah,
All right. Let's see, that answers my questions. Anybody have anything else before we move on? No? All right, then I will entertain a motion. Do we have any? Yes, we do. We have conditions or?
No, those were items for the plan commission.
Oh, okay. All right, we have no conditions, so do I hear?
So moved.
Commissioner Sprague
Second.
and Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Sprague,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
Commissioner Creech votes yes, Chairman Johnson.
Yes. We will have something for you to sign. There you go. There's a clipboard right there, too. You get to sign. There's 2 copies, you keep one. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Of course.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have dockets number 2019-26A. Westin Outlot B, amendment to the Westin North Shore Hotel Retail Planned Unit Development at 751 North Milwaukee Avenue. Docket 2019-26B, Westin Outlot B, special use for a sit-down restaurant, same address. And docket number PC 19-23, Westin Outlot B, major site plan and appearance review, approval. These public hearings were originally opened on December 19th of 19 and continued at subsequent meetings for various reasons. Mr. Robles, anything to add?
Just a real quick summary, as the chair had mentioned, that this item was originally presented in front of the Plan Commission at the December 19th meeting. There were some discussions that occurred regarding the proposal. Since that time, the proposal has been modified slightly, so there are some revisions. The petitioner will go through those, but we do have included in the packet the revisions there. Earlier tonight, a few moments before the Plan Commission meeting, the owner of the adjacent lot to the south, which is commonly referred to as Lot C, has provided a letter since he was not able to attend the Plan Commission meeting tonight. He did provide a letter, which I'll pass around to the Plan Commission. Again, this was provided moments before the Plan Commission meeting. So I have that here, and I
This is the one you
should have it.
emailed too, right?
What, I'm sorry?
You emailed this one, or is this a?
No, this is one we just received.
Oh, okay.
The petitioner would like a copy. I've got one here for you guys to take a look at as well. So that is being entered into the record as the owner could not attend tonight's meeting there. Staff continues to recommend approval of the 3 requests, subject to the conditions that are noted in the staff report. And with that, turn it over to the petitioner unless the Plan Commission has any specific questions at this time.
No, let's have the petitioner come up. Now, were you sworn in originally? If not, we have to swear you in. Do you swear the testimony you're giving tonight is the truth?
I do.
State your name and business address.
My name is Brett Webster. Work with Ware Malcolm Architects, 1315 22nd Street, Oak Brook, Illinois.
All right, Mr. Webster. Give us an update on where we stand with this.
Very good, thank you. Thanks for including us. So since we presented this project last, there was some discussion with the property owner to the south, Lot C, as Steve indicated. He brought up some original declarations that are private agreements between our client, who owns Lot C, and Lot B, and Lot C owner, and then the Westin owner. One of the issues that Mr. Ryder, who represents property owners to the south, indicated was that the building originally proposed for the PUD was a 10,000 square foot building. So, you know, in order to have a dialogue with our neighbor and create something that's amenable, we reduced the size of our building about 900 or so square feet, which created a larger patio area to the south of the building alongside the drive-through that's already existing along the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through lane here. So there's some more landscaping being added in this southwest corner and along the drive-through lane to create some screening for what is proposed to be an outdoor seating area. That's a potential use. There still are no specifically identified tenants, as it states in the report. So one of the other comments that the Plan Commission made last time, these are very small to see, but they're on the drawing here. We added some steel bollards at the end of this where the drive-through traffic needs to turn. So there were some safety concerns there. there was a request to add a bike rack, second bike rack. So right now we have a bike rack directly in the center, and then we have another bike rack over here in the lower left corner of the site. Let's see. This information, we took a picture of a similar bike rack. We added this to the packet here. I'm just skipping ahead real quick here just to show. This is one area where these bike racks would be located. And just skipping ahead here for a second. This is the actual property to the south, and this bike rack right here in the front is the style that's on the site. So we're just showing that our intention is to match with what the staff had recommended. So the building is now shorter in the north-south direction, and so we just rearranged the facade feature, but the materials and the composition of the building is basically the same as what we had originally proposed. It's just a shorter building by some 12 feet, and we're showing the potential for some outdoor seating along this side of the property for our client to attract certain other types of tenants. One of the comments from the previous meeting and the staff had made was on our trash enclosure that we have a top cap. We added a note here that we would have a pre-finished metal coping, our architectural term for the request, to be a cap on the trash enclosures. So certainly agreeable to that, and we'll put that kind of detail into the construction documents. The rest of the building design remains as it was before. We still have our speculative layout for the purposes of having the staff be able to assess the potential user for the drive-through. And we kept our images here of the neighbor that we're trying to blend our property in with our neighbor to the south. We have our civil engineer is Brad Hovanek, and he's here to explain the changes that were made in the civil drawings.
I'll swear you in if you weren't sworn in before.
Yeah, Brad Hovanek with Cage Civil. Address is 3110 Wood Creek Drive.
You swear the testimony you're giving tonight to be the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Really, the civil plans have all stayed about the same as Brett explained. The couple things we added was the patio to the south of the building, as well as the bollards as requested in the last meeting. The only other item that really came up from a staff review was the fire truck access. We went ahead and ran a few more iterations of that to show that fire truck access could go throughout the entire development. Other than that, the site, for the most part, stayed the same. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, we might. Anything else?
I think that's the sum of the changes that we made since we last visited. I'll leave it up to the commission for questions.
This is a public hearing, but I see nobody from the public here, so we will move on. Before we go to the commissioners, though, I'd like to ask Mr. Robles to discuss the parking.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very complicated with this site.
Yes, there are a few numbers that could get confusing, but I've tried to lay it out in a hopefully simple way. So essentially, these are the original approvals that were for the PUD itself. Lot B, as we've discussed previously, restaurant 10,000 square feet, and then you have Lot C as a 14,000 square foot multi-tenant retail building. Within that PUD, they established their own parking ratios separate from the zoning code. So parking ratios for retail were 5 per thousand and restaurant were 10 per thousand, which are slightly different than the standard zoning code. So with that being said, the original approval for Outlots B and C were developed as a shared outlot with shared parking lot and parking immediately in front of the space. Bear in mind that it's not 100% of the parking since it's a PUD, so there's parking throughout the development. However, so with Lot B, original approval, the ratio was 10 per thousand and Lot C at 5 per thousand. So by the PUD numbers, there should have been 170 parking spaces allocated for Lot B and C. Lot B and C were developed with 152. Again, the remaining balance was distributed throughout the PUD development itself. The proposed amendment we have will actually adjust the ratio because it's now shifting from a restaurant to now retail. So it's not, while it's a loss of parking, it's actually a readjustment of the parking ratio. So now that it goes to retail, it is now a ratio of 5 per thousand, which is the same as Lot C. So with that, it actually drops the required PUD parking, and this is again per the approved PUD ratios, to require 50 spaces, 56 are being provided. Nothing is changing for Lot C, so 5 per thousand at 70. Again, per that number, which should be 120, but 108 are being provided just for Lot B and C itself. Again, the rest distributed throughout the development. Taking it a step further, if you look at actual uses that are in both Lot B or Lot C and then speculative uses for Lot B, it changes those numbers, and these are based on actual uses. So if we know that there's a speculative restaurant at the north end of Lot, or the northern portion of proposed building of Lot B, that would be parked at the restaurant ratio of 10 per thousand, which would require 24 spaces based on the 2,400 square foot restaurant. The remaining retail would be parked at the 5 per thousand, totaling 62 spaces. There's 56, as we've identified, that would be indicated for Lot B, which is a parking deficit of 6 spaces. If you look at the parking demand by tenant for Lot C, you can see that there's a substantial number of restaurants. The one kind of variant here, or the two variants, are Massage Envy as well as the nail salon. The PUD did not identify a parking ratio for service type uses, so it defaults to the zoning code, which is 6 per thousand. When you add up everything based on their space, based on current tenants of Lot C, Lot C requires 124 parking spaces. Actually, what's being provided there is 52 spaces. So they're at a parking deficit of 72 spaces. So what does this all mean? Essentially, Lot B is adjusting their parking number through the PUD because the proposal is to change it from a restaurant to a retail development, which would automatically adjust that parking ratio. And with that, based on just general terms, the parking required versus the parking provided is in excess versus what is being provided for on Lot C.
Well, that cleared everything.
So they're saying restaurants only need 5 per thousand?
10 per thousand. Restaurants are at a ratio of 10 per thousand.
Right.
And retail is at a ratio of 5 per thousand.
Okay, go back to your last slide. So they still have a deficit of 72?
Yes, nothing changes with Outlot C.
Right.
Outlot C, nothing's changing. This table purely shows what the real life parking scenario is right now based on uses that are currently within Lot C.
And that's considering spaces that are within a reasonable distance of, or actually on those lots?
There's only 52 spaces that were built on Lot C. The remaining were distributed. So the kind of true, the impact on the PUD is that there are now 108 spaces required for Outlot B, Outlot B and C, and that is certainly provided for within the entirety of the PUD.
Well, that's where I'm getting confused, because here you're saying Lot B is 5 per thousand and C is 5 per thousand.
Right, because they are switching to a retail use.
But they still have restaurants.
Right, so if you want to go a step further, what we've done here in this top table here is show what it would be for a restaurant at 24,000 or 2,400 square feet, and the remainder at retail, so it would be 62. But that restaurant may or may not come.
What this is showing me is that you can tell why Lot C is complaining about losing parking.
Yeah. Okay. Is that clear enough for everybody?
No.
So we don't have to spend much time on parking? Go ahead. Let's get the parking thing out of the way.
Well, so I'm first. So we're short on parking, so that's always been a problem over there. But I know that there's a problem anywhere I go in Chicago to go to a restaurant, and I seem to be able to find a spot, so I don't really have that much of a problem with the parking because it's always going to be tight over there. But as far as your rendering, you're showing one unit already being built as a restaurant and the other end as potentially a restaurant with outside seating. So, I mean, that would even make it worse. So it seems to me that that seating area on the south end could only be public space. And I don't see how that south end unit could ever be used as a restaurant.
It's a speculative statement. It's there for the potential of a tenant to come back to you and make the case that you could fit them into the PUD. I mean, the staff's analysis is that, you know, the parking is provided overall on the entire site. Client has no particular, we were proposing a larger building, but in order to get some private agreement between our neighbor, we're capitulating and.
You have everything all figured out with them now?
We think so, but the parking is still the major topic with the Outlot C owner. So is that going to be an outdoor seating area for a restaurant? We don't know. Whoever that is would have to come back.
Right.
And ask you to look at it again.
Yes, okay. My other problem was I did ask for a drawing or concise information on the trash enclosures. And I know that you detailed that locations and that you were going to put a cap on top.
Let's just stick with the parking thing for now.
Okay.
And we'll get back to other details. I want to just.
So we're just doing parking at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, so
If there's anything else on the parking?
if they come back, they would have to come back to us again for that, whatever spaces go in there.
Yeah, if
Anyway,
it's another restaurant, they would have to come back anyways.
Well, we don't even know if there's one going in there now, right?
Well, okay, let me clarify. There's currently a pending special use for a restaurant for a small portion of the building. If any additional restaurant wanted to come in,
Okay,
they'd
that
have
was
to
my
come
question.
back for
Yeah,
special
thank
use.
you, thank
Just
you.
wanted to clarify that
Yeah,
one of the condition, we are considering this parking with the proposed restaurant right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on parking before we move on? Just wanted to get that done.
Well, I guess I would ask this to staff, though. I understand that it's a big corner, but it's a duplication of the problem we got with the Village Hall parking out front. People don't park where they're supposed to park because they're going to park at the most convenient spot. So it seems to me that we created a problem already with Lot C. They're way deficit, and I can see why right now they got a big empty lot next to them, so we're taking, This project would take away the big empty lot.
That they don't own,
What's that?
that they don't own.
That they don't own, I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is that we've had other situations where we've nitpicked down to the one space, you know, and here we're very much a deficit between the combination of the two properties. One of them's already developed. Developing the second one, we're gonna be at a greater deficit.
It's a whole project.
Should we be reconsidering something different? Because, I mean, if you go all the way down to the river, there's probably spots behind the Westin, nobody's gonna park that far to walk to these locations.
Well, there's a deficit if you want to say that there is not 100% of parking in front of Lot B and Lot C.
Within these two lots, within the confines of the two lots.
But there was never 100% parking on these two lots, even when it was approved as a PUD and hadn't been developed yet. There was already, you know, as this first table shows, there were supposed to be 170, there were only 152. Because the whole center was developed under a shared parking concept, so you have a certain ratio that you put in front of to try to capture the majority of customers parking there. And during peak events or during peak nights, there's going to be an overage that will result in more parking that's further away from the location. But at the end of the day, there is enough parking. There are 966 spaces for the overall development to be shared amongst all the lots. And based on another assessment that we did for the whole development, the whole occupants of the Westin PUD have not exceeded the 966 spaces. So there's one space for every one customer that visits this property, barring any unique
Major
events. But there is enough, even if you park it at if you park it at a 1-to-1, based on actual physical uses there is a adequate supply of parking. It's just not convenient parking.
Yeah, no, I see that. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I don't think it's really a village's concern. I think it's the owner's concerns, because it could hurt their business if the restaurant gets a reputation of, I try to go there, but I have to park 3 blocks away, so I went down the road and I went to another restaurant. You know, they're the ones that are going to suffer. I'm just wondering if, I guess it really doesn't impact the village, but it seems to me that the owners would take this into consideration.
Well, it's important to be cognizant of the parking supply and demand within a given center, because like you said, you know, if we just blindly approve everything and then all of a sudden there's a demand that exceeds the supply there, then it's going to be a problem. In this case here, the problem is going to be convenient parking, not a lack of parking.
Right, yeah, I see that. But we know the reality of what people will do, just out in front. So, yeah, that's all I have on parking, I guess. I just was wondering, you know, like like I said, in other places, we've hashed over 1 or 2 spots, and this is a much bigger number.
Sure, and I think a lot of those situations were
it was limited. There was no place to expand. Either.
Right. It was a single occupant development,
right.
Or, you know, and it wasn't a shared development where you had additional parking areas to park in. So,
right.
Yeah, when it's a single occupant property, and they are then expected to have 100% of the parking because there is nowhere else for that parking
to meet
to go.
the requirement. I understand. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
one other thing I'd like to add is throughout the process of doing the site plan, we have added a crosswalk that goes directly to the parking lot that has the additional stalls. However, Lot C has a crosswalk that goes straight to the front of the Westin. So if there is any sort of problem with overparking for our specific lot, there is a crosswalk that goes straight to that additional parking where they could park. Just right off on the right there.
That's all I had on parking.
Okay.
Chairman.
Well, Commissioner Sprague, let's talk about anything else you want to on this one.
All right. Hi, Brett.
Hi.
My first concern aligns with the fire department, with the location of that entrance on the north side. I've looked at that again, seeing that I've had time to, and I'm seeing potential for quite a few problems right there. Not only is it close to the entrance from Milwaukee, but there's also an entrance almost adjacent to that for the property to the north. That could provide for quite a lot of problems. Also, I'm sure a lot of the Dunkin' Donut customers are going to like that exit also. So that adds even more traffic to that area. So I'm just saying that I'm not, is there any possibility of sliding that exit farther to the east?
We studied that earlier, working with staff. And because we're trying to meet a particular standard for a drive-through, where the drive-through lane ends, where the drive-through window is, it hems us in on where that driveway to the north can be located. A lot of users of the drive-through space are not going to want to only have 4 or 5 cars. So moving that driveway further east shortens the number of cars that can wait in the drive-through. And so we felt that because the restaurant to the north has access to that center drive, primarily putting the driveway out of this lot to the north really is trying to make it convenient for all the users of both of these buildings to circulate, because otherwise they're just gonna have to drive around in circles.
Like they do now.
Well, yeah, but that's not a developed lot. It's just a temporary condition. It's not a real world.
Well, customers of Dunkin' Donuts have that condition now.
They do, but
Because that exit doesn't exist, so.
I understand that, but there's not.
They're getting out. They're getting out somehow.
I understand.
I think one of the domino effects of, as Brett had mentioned, we have gone back and forth with this, is if shifting the driveway further east, it results in a couple of other problems that don't solve, you solve one, you create another. Obviously, you have to be mindful of how close you get to the curve, so that's an issue. Moving it here, then what happens is you have vehicles coming into the site, and then it creates an unnatural movement in terms of making a decision. Do I go this, do you turn west or east? And so what we kind of role played was, if somebody comes into this driveway, say it's here, they're going to come here, and then they're going to want to make a U-turn because they're not going to want to go through the proper way. People are going to go to the path of least resistance. So we felt that it doesn't really, shifting this over any further doesn't really help anything, because it just creates further conflicts internally. The other thing that the planning staff likes about this is that it does allow for cars to immediately leave the property rather than having to circulate through Lot B, around to Lot C, come back around, and have to circulate through the main road. What that involves is it creates more cars coming through the overall center, which it has conflicts with other vehicles in the parking lot, pedestrians, things of that nature. By having an outlet from here, it allows for an easier egress without creating additional conflicts. The fact that the driveway has been shifted more allows for, this is a deceleration lane, not only for this turn lane into the development, but to turn onto Lake Cook Road. So vehicles are already decelerating and they're coming in. They're not entering the site at 40 miles per hour. They're entering the site at a slower rate of speed. There's an open view, so again, planning felt that the conflicts here from a traffic management standpoint, you're always going to have internal conflicts in parking lots because you have cross sections that happen and they're not signalized. There's no stop signs. There's no stop lights or anything of that nature. In terms of the conflicts, we felt that there were open views, slower moving vehicles, that the trade-off was better to not have more traffic circulating through the site than as the alternative.
I was just concerned about the traffic that does come off of Milwaukee. Like you say, they won't be doing 40 miles an hour, but they also won't be expecting a car in their way when they're coming into that area. And that's what will happen if someone pulls out of that proposed exit and doesn't keep going. It stops for some reason, whether it's a car coming from the east or coming out of that other adjacent exit. It's going to be a potential problem.
And those conflicts exist in every parking lot, in all reality. Whether or not this is going to increase that, that's part of the analysis here.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I have is you're proposing, in all your drawings, it says coffee shop on that end, correct? Where the drive-through is? I was just kind of curious why you would want to put a coffee shop there when there's a Dunkin' Donuts 1 block away, and then there's a Starbucks a half a mile down the road with a drive-through.
There's just a lot of competition out there.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Creech.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, my only question is about the drawings for the trash enclosures so that I would have a better idea what exactly you're putting in there, what the materials are, what kind of gates are on it, how it's being made. That's all. I think we asked you for drawings for that last time. So I would like to see drawings on that before those get constructed. So those would be approved by us before, separate from this project. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Just one of the things that just looking at the parking issue and the issues with the drive-through and the entrances. I know that for the restaurant idea, for visibility from the road and everything, it's ideal to have it that main restaurant area where it is. But as I'm looking at this, I'm wondering if it would solve a lot of problems if you would move the main restaurant area to the south end of the lot and have the drive-through go along with the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. Because then any of the extra traffic coming in would be able to use that road that's there with the Westin, and any extra drive-through traffic could even back up through there. And then the entrance could even be moved down further. And then we'd also have extra parking spots where the drive-through, the original drive-through, would be at that north end. Is there, I know for visibility, I know that would be good exposure from the road for the main draw to be on that side, but is there any other?
We did look at that for a little while, but the downside of that idea is that all the parking stalls that are in front of the stores become the drive-through lane.
Yeah, I get that. I was thinking about that too, because you did And you did move back part of the space that you allowed for the buildings, though, because of some agreement that you had with the property owners of Lot C.
Right.
So,
It creates more space between the buildings where the drive-through lane is on our property right now. But the biggest trouble, and there is enough room to put the drive-through lane on the south end, like you're suggesting, but the biggest downfall is that all those parking stalls that are in front of everyone's store would have a car sitting there waiting to go through the drive-through.
well, I'm
Well, unless
saying
you orient
on
the
the
whole
other
building
side.
facing the hotel.
So it's actually, but it does, as you were mentioning, that the drive-through, as they're exiting, would now be going through, but the idea is to flow the same direction as the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through.
Well, the driver will be on the wrong side of the
Oh, well, that is a very good point.
That would only be British cars.
Yes, I get it, yes. I guess that's all my questions. I didn't think about that, so that's it.
Commissioner Yednak.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Sprague got me really thinking, and I see what the conflict is now with the traffic. I didn't think about that when I was reading this at home. So what I'm doing now then is I'm looking at the landscaping plan, and I think that should be modified, because if I look at what you're planning to remove, but then what you're planning to replant, it's on page 2 of the landscaping plan, you're creating a whole blind corner there for anybody, for the car drive coming out of the Lot B driveway, and for somebody coming in off Milwaukee, you've got 2 shade trees and a whole bunch of bushes. And I feel like my cousin Vinny, count this now, how many bushes? 1, 2, 3, 4, don't forget that one behind. But you've got a bunch of shrubbery on each side of the driveway. You've got a bunch of bushes and shrubbery in the corner, and then 2 big shade trees. So now the person pulling out of your lot, making a left to go back out to Milwaukee, can't see anybody coming in off of Milwaukee, and then the person making the right turn off Milwaukee, they're not going to be able to necessarily pick up that there's a car coming out of that spot, and this looks like you're only about a couple of car lengths difference between them. So you're creating a collision point.
All of those plants are shorter than the window of a car.
Not the 2 shade trees, though.
Yeah, but that's just a 3-inch caliper trunk, and it would be trimmed so that the
Up
leaves
to
are
what
not-
height? I mean, where do they start? When they're first put in, they're going to be, the bulk of the tree is going to be at a lower level. It's going to be a few years before that tree is going to be higher up, right?
We can work with the staff on the species and make it, we're trying to abide by the landscape ordinance at the same time.
Yeah, I understand. I
Create
guess
something
that's,
that's
it
attractive
now,
and
after
also safe.
Commissioner Sprague pointed out, and that doesn't, I would have a concern with that corner, if there's anything you can do to improve that corner. I guess that brings me to my next issue then is, when I was going through, I saw that in the fire department, you guys had a bunch of concerns. And you said that the fire department proposed plans, fire department is concerned about this drive due to its configuration. Okay, so that's what we're talking about now. And the fire department is concerned about the outdoor seating. So if the fire department is in acceptance of the plan, should we be approving it? Or shouldn't the fire department have to stamp approval on everything before we even consider it?
Well, I think it's a matter of preference versus code. So I think the fire department would prefer that driveway not be there. But there isn't any, the necessary fire access is being provided. And I don't want to speak for Fire Prevention Bureau, but that is planning's assessment of it, is that in an ideal world, if it was the way it was, they would say no, because it eliminates potential conflicts. But in terms of a code requirement, the necessary fire access is being provided throughout the site.
Okay, then what was the fire department concerned with the outdoor seating and the proximity? Was it the same thing we talked about earlier where the bollards weren't there, and if you somebody loses control of their car. Was that the concern?
Correct. You see them on the news all the time where a car goes into the front of a building or a seating area, and there was nothing other than the curb, to prohibit the vehicle from encroaching if somebody hit the accelerator instead of the brake.
So they put the
Now they
bollards-
put the bollards in, and again, theoretically, if they put them in per code, it should reduce that potential.
But that doesn't address the south side of the property where they're now talking about a seating. They're not controlling, now you've got the driveway there for the Dunkin' Donuts. If somebody doesn't make that corner, they could be driving right into the seating area then, right? So should we be requiring some kind of protection on that potential outdoor seating area on the south side?
Again, at that point, it's a potential outdoor seating area, and, it isn't there yet.
Okay. Well, would that have to come back to us?
Oh, yes, yeah, that would be a special use.
Okay, all right then, all right. But I guess my main concern is that we postponed this 3 times for the parties to get together and work things out, and based on the 2 letters that we got today, it sounds like they're far apart to me. So are we just inviting, again, the village is not really going to be affected by this, but are we inviting the 2 parties to go to litigation if we approve this? They haven't come to terms, and I thought that was the whole point of the postponements.
Well, that was certainly the point, to try to see if they could reach an agreement. We gave them that time, they talked, obviously they made some changes to be in agreement, such as lowering the size to 10,000 square feet, but the petitioner has asked us to proceed with these, even knowing the risks. They have every legal right to do that. We're not bound by this agreement.
Understand?
That's between the parties themselves, and if they want to litigate over it, then they can do that. But they know that risk and have asked to proceed forward. Our indication doesn't trigger till construction permits are pulled.
Okay, yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so, guess I have all my questions answered. So we still have the question of the trash enclosure details. Do we want to see those before we pass this on to the board? Any comments?
One suggestion, we can add a condition that before the permits are issued for construction of the enclosures, that the petitioner return with those details so that it allows us to move forward.
As a minor?
Right, as a minor appearance approval. That's one option, or have them return with details. But that would allow this to move forward through the process.
So that's covered in your 4 conditions already, right? The ones that you have?
We had said prior to village board, but I think it's better if they return to the plan commission for that full review.
Okay.
Now, as far as that north drive, I don't see a good way around it. I see you're gonna need a lot of signage to get people to get to the drive-through the correct way, and probably some signage for exiting that north drive that, indicates that cross-traffic isn't gonna stop, so stay on your toes.
Understood.
That's all part of permitting, right?
Most of
Things like
those,
signage?
correct. Most of the directional signage is exempt from permit or plan or appearance review, so, yeah.
But that is part of the permitting.
Yes,
They will look at that.
yes.
Okay. All right, anybody have anything else?
Yes, when Commissioner Yednick was talking about the fire department concerns,
Yes, sir.
there was one he did not hit, and that is the island where they have relocated the fire hydrant in the front of the building. You had the fire hydrant at that location. You have the fire department connection proposed on the front of the building at that location, and you also have the bicycle rack located in the same area. So depending on how the bicycles are parked using the rack, they're either going into the walkway along the front of the building, or they're too close to the fire hydrant. And you've got all the hose that you would be using to connect to the fire apparatus and then to connect to the fire department connection, and you would have to work around that obstruction.
We could probably forego that bicycle rack in the center there, since there's an additional rack to the south. So that should be sufficient, one bicycle or one bank of bicycle parking, not just for one bike, but one area for bicycle parking, would be sufficient for this size.
Would you want to buy the restaurant then instead?
It's,
Put it right behind the bollards as a
Yeah,
little extra
yeah.
bollard.
yeah. But to the fire's point, that will block the fire department connection, so.
The connection is on the face of the building right by that island?
They're showing it, I think it was just a little bit north of the island, like a foot or so, and it would be on the front face of the building, correct?
I would think that we could forego that bike, but that,
Well, I would say put another one up by the restaurant, because that's where it's more likely going to get used anyways.
yeah, you could put a single rack there. Yeah.
Can't put anything right up against those bollards anyways. So.
No.
So let's make that a condition.
Okay, yep.
Smooth it.
And it looks like you still have some battling to do with Mr. Ryder, because staff got a letter today from him, so.
Yeah, we're aware of his points. We feel that we can come to an agreement with him, but it helps us that the staff provided the parking analysis that they did is very thorough, beyond thorough, frankly. So I think the major point that he had was that our building was bigger than what was originally proposed as a part of the PUD, which we agreed to match.
Do you need to pour that huge patio, since it's only speculation now that you might get a restaurant there? Instead
Well,
of leaving some green space?
I'm kind of a fan of the patio. I mean, my question about the patio was, what happens if some of the customers of your lot C tenant comes over and uses your patio? Are you going to have a territorial dispute? Because the patio is much closer to their building and more conducive to the Dunkin' Donuts. Are you going to be shagging them out?
Well, I would expect that all of the tenants would learn a way to share the property and the parking stalls and everything else we've been talking about here. They want to be on Milwaukee Avenue in Wheeling and not in some other location. They'll find a way to make the amenities work. I see that outdoor area as kind of a site amenity, since we're.
Yeah, I like it. I'm thinking if somebody comes down from the Westin and walks down to use one of the carry-out restaurants, they have an outside seating area there. I don't.
Well, there's not going to be any seating until a restaurant moves in, though.
Unless.
Unless you bring your own.
Well, that was I thought one of the conditions was something that we would see the samples of the outdoor furniture and stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I guess, or if we ask them to develop it as a seating area even on spec, but I don't know.
And there could be tenants in that south end that aren't necessarily a restaurant and
Right.
still would like to have an outdoor seating area. I can't speculate on who that particular user would be for today, But there are a lot of different kind of experience users creating different activities that are not about food.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that someone couldn't bring some nice landscaping features and place them on the patio and not be invested into like a full-time arrangement of something.
Sure.
So it could still become an interesting and, pleasant place to sit. Because we are proposing some shrubbery and some landscaping that would screen out those people sitting in the drive-through lane at the Dunkin' Donuts, as long as that's there. So that, it kind of creates an outdoor space. We just felt if we can't have a building there, that would be a feature that all of the users of the whole complex could make use of.
All right. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Mr. Robles, the conditions on 26A.
Yes, so for 26A, have number one, prior to the construction of the trash enclosures, elevation details shall be provided for Plan Commission review. Number two, minor site plan approval by the Plan Commission shall be required prior to the installation of fencing, bollard, site furniture, prior to the use of any outdoor seating area. And number three, the bike rack at the central parking island shall be located further north to be in closer proximity to the speculative sit-down restaurant at the north end of the building.
Now, should those be part of 1923, the site plan?
If the PC, I think it would be best to include them in both, since this is this item here is for the PUD amendment. So
Okay.
it'd be good to have them in both.
Okay. All right, with those conditions, do I hear a motion on docket number 2019-26A?
So moved.
Second.
Thompson, Yednick.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Yednick,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
No.
Commissioner Creech votes yes, and Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Now on 2019-26B, do we have conditions?
Yes, for B, the singular condition is that the speculative floor plan for the sit-down restaurant shall be incorporated into the ordinance prior to the issuance of a building permit for the restaurant operator. The interior floor plan shall be generally consistent with the speculative floor plan. Any substantial deviations as determined by the zoning administrator shall require the special use to be amended at a public hearing with the Plan Commission.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Nick Thompson.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
Yes.
Mr. Creech votes yes, Chairman Johnson.
Yes. And finally, PC 19-23 for the site plan and appearance approval.
So those would be the same as the first item, 26A, which would be prior to the construction of the trash enclosures, elevation details shall be provided for Plan Commission review. Number two, minor site plan approval by the Plan Commission shall be required prior to the installation of fencing, bollard, site furniture, prior to the use of any outdoor seating areas. And then number three, the bike rack at the central parking island shall be located further north to be in closer proximity to the speculative sit-down restaurant at the north end of the building.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick,
Yes.
Mr. Sprague,
No.
Commissioner Creech votes yes, Chairman Johnson.
Yes. All right, we will have some things for you guys to sign.
Sure. All right, let me observe that there. restaurant. Yes.
All right. In that corner, there's 6 of them. You're going to keep 3 and we get 3 back. And then I need a motion to close the public hearing for 2019-26A.
So moved.
Second.
Is that a just voice vote, Mallory?
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, also a motion to close 2019-26B.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. And 19-23 was not a public hearing, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be on the record. Great. Let's see, this is 26A. B. Oh, you got the wrong number on this. You got the wrong
Oh, that's the wrong.
thing entirely.
Yeah, that is. I opened up the wrong.
But then I saw that number
Yeah,
up there.
Good thing.
So we're blindly signing these things.
No. I have it here. I don't know what happened.
You just approved the asphalt plant.
I had no idea.
Congratulations, we're gonna put it right on that site.
Wait, is that right?
Yeah, I had it all up. It just closed it apparently.
I'm glad I looked up there.
Yeah, right.
Let's try that again.
Sorry about that.
Wait a minute.
I gave you 2 of
You
those.
did it again.
No, I printed 2.
Look at the address.
I don't know what's going on. I
Look at the docket.
literally opened that one. I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's what happened.
Ah.
No, it's the same one. It just got changed here. We'll just, there's no need to redo it. We'll just- it got changed in the title is what happened. But everything else is correct, so we don't need to do all this all over again. There, you just sign that one, going on that one there, and I'll do this one here. I don't know why that got changed. 19, 23.
All right, so that's ours.
There you go. That one you can keep.
And that's yours to keep.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, thank you. All right, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of February 26, including findings of fact for docket number 2020-2. Do I hear a motion?
So moved and no changes.
I had one change that I was just going to bring up.
Okay.
And I've noticed this before, but my name is always spelled wrong on the minutes.
Okay.
Really?
And there's a P in there.
Ah,
Okay, we can get those
There's
up.
no, it's been like that for a while. I just
Do they have it
thought I-
spelled, do they have it spelled right on your sign?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just on the minutes. It's spelled right on the village too, but that's
Okay.
the only thing I thought I'd point it out so it looks like I'm paying attention.
We'll get that updated for you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so, motion to approve the minutes.
I did so move.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very well. Other business. Mr. Robles, anything?
Nothing from staff.
This is for the consent. Nothing?
No.
Commissioner Sprague?
I just was wondering, is the next meeting, are we going to be discussing the signs or the trash enclosures?
Trash enclosures, yes. Signs to be determined.
Oh, okay. That's all I had, thank you.
Commissioner Creech, anything?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman. Everybody vote.
You're here. And stay healthy. Commissioner Thompson?
Nothing for me.
With a
thank
P.
you. Yeah, yes.
Commissioner Yednick?
Nothing, thank you.
And I have nothing. Mallory, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing.
All right. Ron, Kyle, anything? Have a good evening. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.